hello. Thank you all very much for making the time to come along to attend this talk put on by the Colsys department. It gives me enormous pleasure to welcome you all here today for a talk on a topic which I'm sure many of you have been following in the newspapers. As you may have heard, there is an election occurring at some point in the course of the near future in the United States. And while all elections are, of course, to some degree uncertain and interesting, unless perhaps one lives in Russia, the American election this year is particularly so because both the identity of the candidates, at least on one side of the Republican Party, and also the identity of the ultimate winner seem to be very much in flux, almost on a matter of day by day and week by week if you follow the news. As a result of this level of uncertainty, I think it's fair to say that all of us need all the help we can get from the experts in trying to understand quite what the forces are that lie behind the election campaign that's unfolding, to try and get some kind of handle on the direction in which events may travel and the reasons why they may do so. It is for that reason that I am delighted to be able to welcome just such an expert who will be able to help us. Thanks to a tour organised by the United States Embassy, who I should make a point of thanking for their support of this talk. We're able to welcome Dr. Victoria M. DeFrancesco Soto, who is affiliated with many organisations that come out of the University of Texas for the purposes of this talk. Victoria received her Ph.D. from Duke University and was named one of the top 12 scholars in the country by Diverse magazine. Her research analyses how social identities shape political behaviour, and her academic interests focus on campaigns and elections, political marketing, and ethnic politics and immigration, all of which in combination will no doubt be coming up in the course of what we're going to be listening to here soon. She's the Director of Communications for Latino Decisions and a Senior Fellow at the Bernard Center for Women, Politics and Public Policy, and in the past has taught at Northwestern University. She's currently based at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas in Austin. As I was discussing with her prior to the beginning of this talk, however, she's also a strong believer in the importance of those who work in the academic sphere tending to communicate their ideas to the broader public. And in line with that particular vocation, she's also a regular contributor to various mainstream media outlets, including Univision and CNN on Espanol, which is my Spanish exhausted, unfortunately, but not hers, I would imagine. And also a contributor to various online forums, including Politico's Arena, NBC Latino, Huffington Post, and the Daily Grito. As I said, we can do with all the help we can get trying to understand what are some very complex and could not be more important events unfolding on the other side of the Atlantic. We're very fortunate to have someone help us understand them who I think could not be better qualified to do so. I'm sure you'll join me in welcoming, therefore, our excellent speaker who we're lucky to have. Thank you very much.
These are going to be some very fun, some very exciting elections. And I say elections because, yes, we are electing the president, but there are also going to be a series of state and local level elections in addition to our Congress. So we are about 8 months away from the November election. And in this election, we are going to see if the first ever African American president elected in the United States is going to get a shot at another 4 years, or if he's going to be the third Democratic president in history to get booted out of the White House. Many of you guys remember this. I mean, I think it was just a worldwide phenomenon, too, when Barack Obama got elected. In the United States, there was Obama mania. And again, because of the first of the African American president getting elected. Now, keep in mind that in the United States, less than 60 years ago, so in the 1960s, the vast majority of African Americans could not vote. They were disenfranchised in the southern states. And what an amazing feat to then have this president elected. However, we also had some other important firsts in 2008. We had Hillary Rodham Clinton run as a viable candidate for the Democratic candidacy, and also Sarah Palin. So Sarah Palin was the Republican vice presidential candidate And that was a big first in terms of the Republican Party putting forward a woman at the top of a ticket. Brief summary of the results. We saw Barack Obama, a junior senator from Illinois, a relatively young politician, beat John McCain. Senator John McCain, one of the most well-known Republican leaders in the country. And he didn't just beat him, he walloped him. I mean, beating someone by 7% of the popular vote, I mean, he didn't just eke it out. And he also won in terms of the states, the electoral college votes that he was able to attain. Didn't come cheap. A lot of money was spent by both parties, in particular the Democratic Party. And we also saw a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for this election, in particular with the youth, and also with segments that traditionally don't turn out at such high rates. So in the US, Latinos and African Americans, who tend to be poorer, who tend to have less in terms of resources, but they were mobilized by the campaign and came out and really made their voices heard. Most of you probably have a sense of this, but I just wanted to get us all on the same page. We hear a lot about the United States becoming increasingly a minority country. Maybe by 2050 we'll be a majority minority country. And this is true, and the census did show that, but electorally there's a disconnect. So while Latinos may be the fastest growing minority group in the country, the electoral strength of Latinos is only at about 9%. And this will hold also for 2012, mainly being because Latinos tend to not be able to vote for two reasons. First of all, they don't have citizenship status, they're undocumented or illegal, and also they are young. Latinos have the youngest proportion of the population in the United States. Looking at this, we come away from a portrait of the United States where about 3/4 of our electorate is white, tend to be older folks, kind of our parents' ages, 45, 64, and women. Women in the United States have consistently outvoted men for the past 3 decades. Just take a second to look at this breakdown of the vote. This information is based on exit poll data. And I think a couple of things jump out at us. So the blue lines representing the support that the Democratic now President Barack Obama received and Republican candidate McCain received. So up here, looking at the white vote, we saw that vote, the majority of which went to John McCain. But then look at the black and Hispanic vote, and even the Asian vote, overwhelmingly going toward Barack Obama. The youth, clear indication of where that preference is, toward Barack Obama, and also religiously, the Jewish vote. So the victory of the president was really embodied in a coalition of younger, female-led, multiracial, urban, and also the coastal states, college-educated folks. Whereas McCain had older, male-led, mostly white, kind of the type of people that look like McCain, older. And this isn't terribly surprising, is it? We know that Republicans tend to be white, a little bit better off, SES speaking, tend to be in rural America, middle America, between the two coasts, while Democrats tend to be younger, less white, urban. But what really sealed the deal for the president was the independents. You hear this term a lot, the swing vote. That chunk in the middle went pretty wholeheartedly for the president. And the second issue was that group that he had mobilized, blacks and Latinos, turned out at very high rates for this president. So those are two extra pushes that he got in the 2008 election. we just were discussing how Barack Obama won a very decisive victory in 2008. But just as important is to highlight the fact that at the legislative level, the Democrats also had a decisive win. Going into 2008, the Democrats already had a majority. So that was fine. And they thought they were going to gain some seats, but they ended up gaining close to 24 seats. So when Barack Obama came into office, he came into office with a mandate. So the Democrats had the executive, and then they had the House of Representatives and the Senate. But what a difference 2 years can make. We go into the 2010 midterm election. Who are we looking at? Come on, you guys are telling me you didn't? You don't recognize her? Some people would say she's famous, other people would say she's infamous. Well, regardless, she's a very popular lady, Sarah Palin. In the U.S., I don't know if you've been following this, but a movie just came out called Game Changers. A lot of controversy about that. So after the election, two journalists from Time Magazine wrote a book about the campaign, a very good book where they went behind the scenes with the Democratic and the presidential campaigns. And Sarah Palin was a big part of this, so HBO just made a movie, Game Changers, and Julianne Moore plays Sarah Palin. So here it's good fun, so go watch it. Sarah Palin didn't win, obviously, but she went on to become a very strong force within the Republican Party, and she really became the face of a movement within the Republican Party. She went on to become the face of the Tea Party. And if we remember, in 2009, which is about the time that the Tea Party started, about mid-2009, fall of 2009, this was also the time that the country was starting to get down into the issue of the healthcare reform. Healthcare reform being one of the main issues that Barack Obama had campaigned on. And let me go. 2009 was a year when healthcare started to be debated seriously, but it was also, and this was earlier on, I don't know if you remember, but when the auto industry was on the brink of collapse and the administration went in, and it's called the bailout, saved it, bailed it out, depending on your persuasion. Also the banks, the banking industry was on the verge of collapse, and the administration, the government went in and saved the banks or bailed out the banks. And also there was a second round of stimulus funding.